Here in our eighth time together, we're looking at verses 8 through 9 of Philippians chapter 4. And in this section here, it begins to talk about what we can think about. This is another um, aspect of what we need to do to be able to overcome anxiety and fear and worry. Look what it says, verse 8. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. It's a common idea, which is not correct, that we cannot control what we think about. We control what we think about by um, shutting out some things that are negatively affecting us. Nowadays, there's often this conversation about toxic relationships. And these toxic relationships basically bring in toxic thinking, poisonous thinking that makes it hard for us to think on the things we want to think on. That's exactly the idea we're talking about here. Not necessarily toxic relationships, but we're talking about toxic thinking and sometimes we may not realize it, but the things that we input into our heads makes that anxiety, or I should say exacerbates that anxiety, increases it, builds it up, strengthens the anxiety and the worry, and it minimizes the strength and the help and the upholding work of God in our life. God's trying to accomplish these things in our life, and when we know that He's trying to accomplish these things in our life, it would be more effective and beneficial in our life if we cooperated with Him in that. And that's what He's talking about here. The first way we can cooperate is by thinking about certain things. The second way is about practicing or doing certain things, and we're going to talk about that on our next one. But in this one here, we're thinking about things. Just give a little thought about what passes through your mind, good and bad. And you what do you allow to come into your mind? You intentionally watch things, read things, look at things that are stirring inside of you a discontentment with what you have going on, with what the Lord would have you do, a strengthening and upholding and helping you. Even we see this one, we every single day maybe read all of the news about this pandemic, and our emotions keep getting rising higher and higher and more intense because the news is overwhelming. And this isn't only a small case because it happens on a more regular basis with just the stuff we put in our mind. We put in stuff that tells us that God is wrong, maybe about the way we should earn money, or by the way we should treat our relationships, or how the value of sex is, or the value of of reading the Bible or going to church or caring for family members. All these values that we have in life are whatever things we consider to be high value. If they're different from the way God sees them, then what we're doing is we're working against what He's trying to do in our life. And it says here, it gives examples, and He basically says, look at finally here, manage your thinking by thinking about whatever is true. Don't spend time on speculation, but what might be or what could have been. Focus on what's true, starting with God's word, but also moving on to just true things in life. We sometimes think the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. Well, that is not true. Oftentimes there's many blessings that we have in our own life, and we need to think about those and focusing on those. Think on whatsoever is honorable. Sometimes we will consume our minds with wicked things. Uh, and then when we do that kind of thing, we're not focusing in on honorable things, and therefore we're resisting God's work in our life. Same thing when it says whatever is just. If we're looking for the criminal way to accomplish something, the shortcut of ditching integrity and moving toward uh, unjust ways to accomplish things, then we're resisting the work of God in our life. It says whatever is pure. Pure is defined by the right way to do something, and whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, whatever is excellent, whatever things that are worthy of praise. And then it says, think actively on those things. I can't emphasize enough that when it comes to thinking, we are not just responders to whatever comes flooding into our mind, as if we don't have any control here. We actually operate an eye gate and an ear gate to what comes in. All of our senses we can shut off to some things and we can turn on to other things. When we choose to do the thing, take the list that God's produced for us here, then it's going to minimize the anxiety, the discontentment, the worry, and the fear. And when we focus our minds on the things God is doing in His love for us and His grace and mercy and salvation and even good relationships that He is developing in our lives, that we will slowly begin to change the way we think and experience far less anxiety